Day 4 of the World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland. It's by far the coldest of all the days so far this week, which makes it all the more curious how the global elite speaking here at the Davos Congress Center are leaning into a true unfettered global warming alarmism. Take a look at Al Gore doing what I can only describe as slam poetry about the climate.
Creating the droughts and melting the ice and raising the sea level and causing these waves of climate refugees predicted to reach 1 billion in this century. Look at the xenophobia and political authoritarian trends that have come from just a few million refugees. What about 1 billion? We would lose our capacity for self-governance on this world. We have to act. So in answer to your question, I would say we have to have a sense of urgency much greater than we have yet had, and we need to make some changes.
Yes, that was a very vivid portrayal, ending with a call to action. And Al Gore also lauded Greta Thunberg for protesting coal in Germany, which got her fake arrested for the cameras. But one day later, Greta Thunberg was walking the streets of Davos. But the reason I focus on the comments of people like Al Gore and Greta Thunberg is because it doesn't take long for them to end up being uttered by people who do have influence on the world stage when it comes to politics. Take Secretary General of the United Nations Antonio Guterres, who actually said that oil and gas companies need to be held accountable. He likened the oil and gas sector to big tobacco and said that the fundamental business model is at odds with the survival of humanity.
Some in big oil peddled the big lie. And like the tobacco industry, those responsible must be held to account. Today, fossil fuel producers and their enablers are still racing to expand production, knowing full well that this business model is inconsistent with human survival.
There have been, by my count, about a dozen sessions this week dealing with the so-called just transition. This is the fancy, glitzy WEF and UN-approved way of talking about transitioning away from oil and gas. And they put the word just in there so they can pretend that they're going to make it fair and equitable for people, so that they can give people that have been just transitioned out of their jobs access to some new green job, or maybe they can learn to code, to use that old joke. But the reality is the people here at Davos are talking about a future that doesn't have hydrocarbons, a future that doesn't have oil and gas. As we discussed yesterday, or attempted to discuss with John Kerry, emissions reductions in places like Canada are rather inconsequential when countries like China are unwilling and unprepared to do the same thing. Yet that still becomes the elephant in the room that they don't want to discuss in Davos. But in the end, we have people calling for larger carbon prices, more carbon tax, more money that consumers have to pay just to heat their homes, to drive around. The CEO of a Spanish energy company actually thought this was a feature and not a bug of high energy prices.
And on that last one, I think I will combine it with your question, what would be your wish, is to get much higher carbon prices and to use that money to subsidize clean energies. It's very, very simple. But in Europe, we've seen an enormous response this year, 20% less natural gas usage. Why? It was very expensive. Right. It's very simple. It's a very capitalist intervention, but just make what you try to avoid expensive and subsidize the thing that you try to build. It's not difficult, but we're not doing it, certainly not globally.
The argument there is that if people can't afford to heat their homes, they won't heat their homes, and this is somehow better for the climate, so we should all celebrate. This is just one of many ways where the discussions that take place in Davos are disconnected in every way from the lives of people around the world who are influenced by the discussions that take place here, by government leaders and corporate leaders that get together and are all on the same page when it comes to the vision they have for the energy industry. For True North from Davos, I'm Andrew Lawton.